Hi, I'm Ch13. This is an overview of Chapter 13 from Metasploit, the Penetration Tester's Guide. It's on building your own module. Modules are just a way to extend the Metasploit framework. They're used so that you can write your own attacks, or you can even edit other people's modules to do different things. They're written in Ruby. Ruby's similar to Python. It's a scripting language. If you want to learn more about it, you can go straight to the source at ruby-lang.org, and they have some documentation and get going in like 20 minutes. Just a quick overview of syntax and what you can do with it and how it works. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is getting command execution on Microsoft SQL. It's a pretty popular attack vector because of the SA account, which is the sysadmin account on SQL. It's popular because by default the password is blank, so it's something easy to attack, and sysadmins usually don't change it from the default. We'll just quickly look at the module that uses it in Metasploit now. So now we're going to take a look at the Microsoft SQL exec module. Here are the options. Our host, which is our victim machine. Command we want to do. In this case, we're just going to add a user. And then you can just exploit it. In this case, it won't work because I don't have a real victim machine set up. So now we're going to explore the module that actually allows us to do this. So this first line with the require here is just telling us that the module will include all functionality from the Metasploit core library. Here is our start in our class. It actually includes stuff from the Metasploit auxiliary. This includes a library that allows us to work with Microsoft SQL. It's pulling stuff from the core Metasploit libraries. Here's this def run, which is a function call. Here it pulls a specific command from the Metasploit data store. I'm going to dig down deeper and go to the libraries to look at what it's actually doing. So right here we're looking at the SQL query to run against the server, so that we can call the XP command shell stored procedure. And then this is the variable we're actually replacing with our command. So this right here, for instance, would be replaced with our, when we did the net user Metasploit password add, that would replace this pound curly bracket command pound, or not pound, ending curly bracket. If we switch to our other one, you can see there's a re-enable the XP command shell stored procedure. And this is for 2005 and 2008 SQL servers. Here you can see it's just a sequence of commands issued to re-enable it. Now we're going to go back and look at creating a new module. So now we're going to create a new module. The book kind of gives you the premise of you're doing a pen test and you're working on a server that's running Microsoft Server 2008 and SQL Server 2008. Microsoft removed debug.exe on these systems, so we need a way to convert our executables. So we're going to create a new module to do this for us. And so we're going to look at passing something to the SQL Server that has a blank password, and gain access to the XP command shell stored procedure, allow us to deliver a Meterpreter payload onto the system, PowerShell is a Windows scripting language that gives you access to all the .NET framework from the command line. We're first going to create a new module that uses Metasploit to convert the binary to hex, and then when we get that onto the Windows server, we're going to use PowerShell to convert it back from hex to binary so that we can execute it. So to create a new module, we're first actually going to start out with the MS SQL payload exploit, just so that we have something to work with. Don't have to start from scratch. So we're going to make a copy of it. We'll call it MS SQL PowerShell. Go ahead and open that up. And you can see again, this includes the Metasploit core libraries. Create a class that uses the Metasploit exploit from remote. Here you can give it a ranking, saying how reliable it is. More library inclusions. Go down to the initialize function. This has stuff like the name of the exploit, the description, so we can change some of these. Like maybe we'll call the name PowerShell payload. Oops. Can also change description. We'll say something like this module will deliver our payload through Microsoft PowerShell using Microsoft SQL based attack vectors. Leave some of this other stuff, but of course you could change the author. Change the license, the version. This is just all the stuff you see underneath info when you type that. For this, we're going to actually change this option. So you know when you go to see the options for an exploit, it'll show stuff that you can do. Where you're gonna say call this use PowerShell. So we change this option string to say that it's not required. Gave it a description of what it is. And then set the default to true for our current setting. We're just gonna define our exploit. We're just more of this. So we don't need it. Leave this, and we'll come back and finish off this function. So we'll go to use our module we just created. Show options, and it should just have the option we just added. You can see there it is. Use PowerShell. Current setting of true. Required no. Use PowerShell as a payload delivery method instead. I misspelled instead, but it doesn't matter, it's just a description. Now we're going to go back inside and actually build out that exploit. First thing we want to do is build error handling. So in case our username and password aren't actually good, it'll give us an error. Then another statement just saying if our option to use PowerShell is set to true, then we're going to use the PowerShell upload exec, which is just a command telling we're going to use PowerShell. We'll have to build that out as well. And that's really it for it. Most of our work's going to be done in the library file for Microsoft SQL, building out this PowerShell upload exec. So let's get out here and go to that. So now we're going to go to that Microsoft SQL library and make our PowerShell upload exec function. So now we're just going to find a spot in here in this file to do that function. First thing we do, start building the function. And this obviously has to be the same name as what we're calling from the other file. So when you see it's taking in two parameters, the X command is the executable we will be sending from our code, and then the debug just tells it whether or not we want debugging information, and we initialize it to false so that it starts out as that. Go on and start building our hex converter. So right now we're assigning hex opened up as a hex file. So all the binary got switched to hex already as we unpack that. This var payload is going to be the name of our file. We're just going to assign it a random 8-letter name. And then we're just going to give a little message saying that this stays on the victim computer unless you clean it off. So just a little warning message. And so pretty much you can see it tells you the file name that it's and where it's being left. Another little note, this function's probably already in your Metasploit. So if you want to try to do this, you can either delete it out or just leave it and look over it. They have good comments in there too, telling you what all this stuff does. So these next few lines here are going to be our payload converter that grabs the hex file and converts it to a binary through the PowerShell. This first line creates the hex to binary conversion. So this code right here, this line, essentially creates a byte array that will write out the hex-based Metasploit payload as a binary file, and it will use that var payload as the name. So when you see this apostrophe R and apostrophe N, it's actually stripping out character turns and line feeds. After that, you can see convert to byte and then write all bytes out to our file. And then this line, so this line converts the H2B string to Unicode and then the base 64 encoding. And this is so we can use the PowerShell without changing some registry settings. This next line is also part of that. I was talking about converting it to Unicode and then converting it to the base 64. We then just add another print status telling us that we're uploading it and to wait for it. And so these next few lines, I'll try to explain there. We're going to make something that sends 500 bytes at a time, so then the other side will read those 500 bytes and then we'll send another 500 until the end of file. We're just using IDX and CNT as counters, and the IDX will gradually increase by 500, and then we'll set the CNT to 500. And you can see in that while we're sending 500 hexadecimal characters to the target machine, and the 500 byte chunks continue to be added until that IDX counter reaches the same length as the payload, which means it's the end of the file. And then after that's done, we're going to print out a message saying we're going to convert the payload using PowerShell coded command. And we looked at these MS SQL XP command shell commands earlier in those libraries. So now we'll open up Metasploit again, go back and use our module we just made, and we'll set our payload to be a reverse shell. we'll set our machine's IP. Of course, I'm yet again not actually doing this for real, so this will fail, but we'll pretend that I have this all set up. And then we can go ahead and hit exploit. And obviously, like I said, it won't work, but that's creating a module. So that's a couple last things I wanted to hit on. Was reusing code. That's a big thing with Metasploit, being able to look at other people's modules and tweak them as you see fit to do what you need them to do. Really makes it powerful that you can just, on a whim, change an exploit to use that PowerShell to do something, and then still use existing payloads like reverse shells and things like that. So when you're using this, I mean, if you need to do something, I would look for other people's modules first before just totally making my own. And that's kind of that. And then just some sources here, pretty much the book, and like I mentioned before, that quick start on learning Ruby, just so I can get a little bit better understanding of what they're doing. And that is it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and gave you a little bit more information than maybe the book did.